that only Sydney's choice would result in a consequence. Many trolls on social media posted the most horrific comments regarding my late daughter. I'm sure many of your children as well. And faulted Sydney's death to poor parenting. Since when do we defend drug dealers? Have we really sunk that low to dismiss the worth of a human life because their death was attributed to drug use? Sadly, yes. Many people shared that I was trying to reframe the blame. Our children were all given a death sentence. Why is it so far off the radar to not also expect some accountability of the persons peddling poison that caused these deaths? I educated myself as to the Illinois Criminal Statute of Drug-Induced Homicide because as a veteran and law enforcement officer, I never heard of it. I contacted Will County and Lake County State's Attorney Michael Nick and Timothy Neese, and I discovered that they were successful in pursuing criminal charges in these lethal poisonings. They were both such a wealth of information in fighting for justice for Sydney. Lastly, I shared Sydney's precious life and the tragic loss of her life, to anyone that would listen. Grieving families and myself began hosting peaceful Rise Up rallies at Cook County courthouses, police stations, medical examiner's office, and Millennium Park. I'd send press releases to the media for coverage, and sadly, no one would show up to cover the homicides of our children. We then decided we'd take our advocacy to the media and host a rally outside Channel 7 News on Mother's Day, calling for justice of our children. The Chicago Police Department continued to share that it was not their protocol to investigate these deaths criminally. I continue to state, why can't Sydney be the first? 16 months after Sydney's death, the Chicago Police Department brought in the two drug dealers that I knew from day one were responsible for my daughter's homicide. They both admitted to selling pure and potent ecstasy to Sydney and gave statements making their co-defendant culpable. Both were charged with drug-induced homicide. Shortly thereafter, they both bonded out. Guess what they did? They went right back to slinging drugs. They were fighting a Class X felony. They took my daughter's life, and they were both charged, again, with unlawfully delivering controlled substance, a Class X felony, after selling 110 hits of LSD and a gram of ecstasy to an undercover Orland officer. In 2018, they were both convicted of drug-induced homicide. Brent Tyson was sentenced to 6 years in prison, where he currently remains, and Cynthia Parker received only 1 year of probation and 3 years for her delivery charge in Orland Park. She served less than half of her sentence and is out on parole. None of this will bring my daughter back, but I am confident that it will send a powerful message to those peddling poison for profit that law enforcement will investigate these deaths criminally. I pray that both Tyson and Parker rehabilitate themselves, as the only thing worse than losing one life would be losing all three. I truly believe that prison was the only hope for Tyson in turning his life around. It is critical that law enforcement arrive on the scene of drug toxicity deaths and treat every scene like any other crime scene, protecting the area, collecting evidence, and taking statements. The cellular phones are a treasure trove of evidence for law enforcement to examine for digital evidence tracing the victim's final hour, leading to the lethal source. In April 2018, CBS News reported that 2,600 people have died in Chicago since 2015 from drugs. 2,600 people. And only one case of those 2,600 have resulted in a conviction for drug-induced homicide. That is unacceptable. We will not be silent until the judicial system dismisses these drug toxicity deaths as non-criminal. Also shared in the CBS News story was McHenry County State's Attorney Patrick Keneally, who said his office has also brought charges on at least 20 cases in the past 3 years. Every single overdose case that happens in McHenry County, we assign a lawyer to work with police, Keneally said. In 2017, 80 people died from drug overdoses in McHenry County. 8 drug dealers faced drug-induced homicide charges. In 2018, the number of deaths dropped to 51, and 15 drug dealers were charged, records show. This, we truly believe, is tangibly resulting in lives being shared Keneally. The Chicago Police Department superintendent admits that law enforcement decided against investigating drug toxicity deaths years ago. But he says now it's become an epidemic, so we need to do what we can to reduce that. And the Chicago Police Department's plan to create a task force to start handling these cases. That was in April. 2 weeks ago, a little over 2 weeks ago, we lost Liam in Chicago, and the evidence was left on the scene, phone not recovered, so I'm sorry, I don't believe that, and I hold the Chicago Police Department accountable. We have to do right by our children. Superintendent Johnson said, I'm confident that we will be able to model what they are doing out in McHenry County. Our children's lives matter too, and these cases must be investigated criminally. It is my hope that in time, families will not have to beg and plead with the judicial system to investigate these homicides criminally, as I cannot think of anything crueler of the judicial system than to task a grieving parent with fighting for justice following the indescribable loss of our children. Former Mississippi Attorney General Mike Moore shared the drug toxicity deaths are equivalent to a Boeing 737 crashing every single day and killing all the passengers on board. If that happened, we'd shut down the skies and we'd figure out an answer to this problem. Why not the same respect for the lives of our children? I also got some bracelets and some literature, which you guys are welcome to take. On September 22nd through September 29th, we are hosting our empty chair event. We ask that families take a chair, decorate your chair, or just a plain white folding chair, what have you. Put your child's photo out there so we can bring some attention to law enforcement going after these drug dealers. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry for all your loss.